It's Monday, December 2nd, 2024. Trump makes his pick for FBI director, the least surprising news of all time, and dispatches from across the pond next on the AM Update. Breaking news, Democrats lie.
I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
That is Joe Biden not that long ago promising in the midst of his son Hunter's repeated misdeeds over the course of about a decade, saying he had no plans, no intentions whatsoever to pardon Hunter Biden. Well, President Biden pardoned his son Hunter Biden after the first son was convicted in two separate federal cases earlier this year. The announcement was made by the White House on Sunday night. The pardon applies to offenses against the U.S. that Hunter Biden, quote, has committed or may have committed from January 1st of 2014 to December 1st of 2024. Quote, from the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word even as I've watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted, Biden wrote in a statement. The president went on to claim his son was, quote, treated differently by prosecutors, quote, without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser. People are almost never brought before trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It's clear Hunter was treated differently, end quote. Of course, that is all absolutely, well, I guess he probably was treated differently. He was treated a lot more fairly than any Republican, and I hate to do the meme. I hate doing the, oh, if only he was a Republican. But it's true. I mean, every cliche has an element of truth to it. He was treated differently. He was probably treated differently than a Republican first son would have been. A lot more leniently than a Republican first son would have been, but that's all water under the bridge now. That Republicans need to impeach Joe Biden on the way out the door. They control the House of Representatives, allegedly. They need to impeach his ass. And this is just a heinous abuse of power. Pardoning your son because he's your son. It doesn't get much worse than this. Of course, the political reality is now that Donald Trump could appoint, I don't know, fill in the blank. He could appoint Robert E. Lee to his cabinet. And it looks like tiddlywinks now. What more is there to say? What more is there to say? I mean, Donald Trump just keeps getting political gift after political gift over and over and over again. It's pretty incredible. And then, of course, this weekend, Donald Trump named his FBI director pick. Well, it is official now. Donald Trump has selected Kash Patel to be his director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know much about Kash Patel, but a lot of people who I respect really, really like this pick. Here's a fact sheet of Kash Patel's background and kind of maybe lends itself and explains why Trump chose him to lead the FBI. Kash served as chief of staff to the Department of Defense and deputy assistant to President Trump during the first Trump administration. He served as deputy director of national intelligence, where he oversaw all 17 intelligence community agencies. He led Trump's counterterrorism mission as deputy assistant to the president on the National Security Council. He served as the national security advisor and senior counsel for the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. He worked as a national security prosecutor at the DOJ under the Obama administration. He also served as the DOJ liaison officer to Joint Special Operations Command, and he began his career as a public defender, going after and prosecuting and defending cases ranging from murder to narco trafficking to complex financial crimes. So this is a guy, and this is a really banal surface level observation here. When you look at him speak, he's kind of got a crazy like the fox look in his eyes, and that's kind of something that you want. And listening to some of the clips like the one that I'm about to play, he is just as based and crazy as probably a lot of you listening to this podcast are, and serious about the deep state and dismantling it as people like you and me probably are, except as you just heard, he has a background. He knows how the deep state operates. He knows how Washington works, and so that gives him a broad knowledge base on how to get things done. I'd hope anyway. Here he is on a podcast explaining some day one priorities he has if he were put in a position like FBI director.
Anyway, the other thing that I put in the book that I recommended the boss to do hits on this. We need a 24/7 declassification office.
Yes.
Rolling papers out 24/7. And not just like JFK and not just 9/11. You're talking to the guy that's read the whole 9/11 report and those 7 pages that people talk about. But I believe, as like the guy who's an intel guy who believes wholeheartedly in the classified system of information, I believe that it has been over-abused by these corrupt officials in government to hide the truth and enact more corrupt activities. So what I told the boss was like, I don't care what you call it, truth and reconciliation, whatever, come up with a better name. But every agency and department literally submits all of their documentation, and I believe you could get half out. Half. I still think the other half needs to remain classified. I'll always argue that it does serve a purpose. But like you're seeing in these documents in the Jack Smith case, they're just redacting stuff that they lied about, that they broke the law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's used to protect themselves.
And it's a public document in a federal court, which is a document for the people of the United States. And we can have you run that office. You can come in and just be like, hey, I want all the Saudi documents.
I'll gladly do that. I'd be so happy.
So Luke will be the press secretary for the Libertarian Party.
The declassifying
the
documenter.
viceroy of declassification.
Absolutely. I like that.
There you go.
I'm in. You got. Where do I sign up?
Yeah. But I think that's how you earn the respect. Like you said, Donald Trump started talking about these things. Then we started putting these documents out there. And remember when I ran Russiagate, right? They came after me and said, if you put out the Nunes memo and you put this out that you wrote, our enemies and our allies are going to get murdered.
So that is just a taste of Kash Patel. He was, from what I've seen, one of the key, actually, instruments in Washington, D.C., within the government that completely dismantled the Russia collusion conspiracy theory that the left cooked up with the help of the deep state back during the first Trump administration. And now he's tapped to lead the FBI. So, like I said, prior to the last few weeks when his name was bandied about as potentially being the leader for the FBI, I'd not really heard much of Kash Patel. But a lot of people whom I respect have a lot of respect for Kash. And boy howdy, I think if you voted for Donald Trump to dismantle the deep state and get all of the illegals out of the country, so far, his administration, and then the cherry on top, of course, is some of the health and public health picks that he's made with RFK Jr. and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya being among those. This overall is a really, really good cabinet. Overall, not perfect, but no cabinet is going to be. So Kash Patel, leader of the FBI, if he gets confirmed. And now the least surprising news of all time, a number of President-elect Donald Trump's most prominent cabinet picks and appointees have been targeted by bomb threats and swatting attacks. That's according to the Trump transition team late last week. Trump transition spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said in a statement, quote, last night and this morning, speaking last week, several of Trump's cabinet nominees and administration appointees were targeted in violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. The attacks ranged from bomb threats to swatting, in which attackers initiate an emergency law enforcement response against a target victim under false pretenses. The tactic has become popular in recent years. Leavitt said law enforcement and other authorities acted quickly to ensure the safety of those who were targeted, and Trump and his transition team are grateful. Over the weekend, President-elect Trump threatened 100% tariffs on the bloc of countries known as BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates if they tried to replace or move away from the U.S. dollar. Trump wrote on Truth Social Saturday afternoon, quote, the idea the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty U.S. dollar, or they will face 100% 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. They can go find another sucker. There is no chance BRICS will replace the U.S. dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Again, that's a statement from Donald Trump on Truth Social over the weekend, playing hardball with the BRICS conglomeration of countries should they try to do away with the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. Of course, you may know after the U.S. imposed debilitating sanctions of Russia in 2022 over the invasion of Ukraine, that group of countries began to increasingly discuss relying less on the dollar. Replacing the dollar has been a goal of the BRICS group for years, but it's been previously thwarted by infighting amongst the various countries. Tough talk on immigration from an unlikely source. Here's New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who says she welcomes ICE removing illegals who have committed crimes.
But we need to fix the border, fix the system. But I'll tell you this. Those who come here legally, we want to get them jobs. I have 460,000 open jobs in the state of New York. I want them to get the proper work permits. I want them to keep their temporary protective status, if that's what they have. I want to make sure that they're part of contributing to society while they're here. That's separate from people who are criminals. Someone breaks the law, I'll be the first one to call up ICE and say, get them out of here.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul saying, you know what? If they've broken the law, and that's Donald Trump's number one priority, is criminal illegal aliens, which all illegal aliens are criminals if they crossed into the country illegally. But if they've gone on to continue to commit crimes, some of them violent, those are in the first in line to be deported from the United States. That's Kathy Hochul, a lefty, saying, yep, I'm going to be the first one to call up Immigration and Customs Enforcement and say, get them out of here. She's not the only lefty who's all of a sudden talking tough on immigration. More on that in just a few moments. International news. Just despicable, wicked news out of the United Kingdom. The British Parliament backed a bill Friday that would legalize assisted suicide. Following hours of debate, the United Kingdom's House of Commons voted 330 to 275 in favor of a law that allows citizens with less than 6 months to live to end their own lives. The Terminally Ill Adults End-of-Life Bill still must pass through parliamentary committees and the UK's House of Lords to become law. Kim Ledbetter, the lawmaker who introduced the bill, expects this to take an additional 6 months. Oxford ethicist Dr. Callum Miller wrote on X, the vote was, quote, a huge step towards state-assisted and doctor-assisted murder of old and sick people in the UK. Currently, assisted suicide is illegal in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Friday's vote puts the UK on track to join the handful of other countries that legalize assisted suicide, including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. 10 U.S. states, along with Washington, D.C., also permit assisted suicide. Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying program now is the fifth leading cause of death in the country, with 13,241 people choosing assisted suicide in 2022 alone. As that aforementioned Oxford ethicist alluded to, assisted suicide is just a baby step towards mandated suicide. That's what it is. It's wicked. It's evil. There's never any moral explanation for assisted suicide. And yes, in ethics, there is the letting die versus killing. But this definitely falls into the killing category. It's wrong. No matter if somebody wants to die, it's wrong morally. And it's only a matter of time before in the West we start to see mandated killing in the name of, well, you're just too expensive to keep alive. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says immigration has been a disaster in the West. Here he is speaking late last week.
What the British people are owed is an explanation. Because a failure on this scale isn't just bad luck. It isn't a global trend or taking your eye off the ball. No, this is a different order of failure. This happened by design, not accident. Policies were reformed deliberately to liberalise immigration. Brexit was used for that purpose, to turn Britain into a one-nation experiment in open borders. Global Britain. Remember that slogan? That is what they meant. A policy with no support, and which they then pretended wasn't happening.
So that is Keir Starmer talking tough again on immigration, saying that open border policies, not only in the UK, but around the rest of the West, like in the United States, has been a disaster, and it, quote, happened by design, not an accident. Why do you think Keir Starmer all of a sudden is talking tough on open borders? I mean, this guy is as left as they come, the British Prime Minister. Why is he all of a sudden against immigration? I don't trust him as far as I can throw him, but let me know what you think about why he's saying this now at Real AM Update on X. And finally, reacting to the news of various Trump officials being threatened and being swatted over the holiday weekend, here's the new border czar Tom Homan, who was the subject of one of those threats, speaking on Fox News.
I'll be honest with you, I have not taken this serious up to this point. Now that I know what's happening the last 24 hours, I will take it a little more serious. But look, I've been dealing with this when I was the ICE director in the first administration. I had numerous death threats. I had a security detail with me all the time. Even after I retired, the death threats continued. And even after I retired as the ICE director, I had U.S. Marshals protection for a long time to protect me and my family. And what doesn't help is all the negative press around the president and people he's putting in his cabinet. Me, I'm not in the cabinet, but, I've read numerous hit pieces on me. I'm a racist and I'm the father of family separation, all this other stuff. So the hate media doesn't help at all because there are some nuts out there that'll take advantage. So that doesn't help. And I thought we're beyond that after the election's over, that we're going to get beyond that. But, I will now start taking a little more serious after I just heard what's happened the last 24 hours. Up to that point, I was the attitude that if I'm not home, my family's not home. And they're not home right now, but when I return home, I'm going to bring them home. But I was up the attitude lately that if you want some, come get some. Because, I've been through this many, many times. And but again, what I've learned today, I'll start taking a little more serious.
Do you think that there's a role you can play once you're in position and come January 20th? Do you think there's a role that you can play with your leadership and seniority in the second term of President Trump's administration that can help to sort of bring an end to these kinds of threats that we've been seeing now, as you mentioned, against Republican officials and Democratic officials?
Well, I think the first role is not to be intimidated. I'm not going to be intimidated by these people. They're not going to silence me. Look, I'm going to do this job. I'm going to do this job because it's an issue of national security. So you're not going to shut me up. I'm not going away, and I'm going to do this job, and I'm going to continue talking to the American people why it needs to be done.
That is Tom Homan, border czar of the incoming Trump administration, telling lefties, threatening his life, come get some. I love it. Talking the talk. Let's see if they can walk the walk. That'll do it for Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.